Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Julie Kaminsky. I am the founder of the Walking Book Club. The Walking Book Club is an audio book club with a healthy body, happy mind ethos. The idea behind the Walking Book Club is to engage the mind and the body so that you enjoy your movement more. But whether you come here for the exercise or the intellect or the book or conversation or the community, we are glad you're here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds before we get to the formal part. I'm going to repeat a couple of the reminders as we get started to keep yourself on mute, but please, if you want to go on camera, that is fabulous. We'd love that. Just be mindful that if you can see us, we can see you. So if you could just be mindful of that, that would be great. Okay, so let's get to the formal aspect of the program with the introductions. I want to thank all of you for being here. As I said, this is the Walking Book Club. It's an audio book club, and tonight's event is the aligning of so many wonderful stars. Not only do we have Alka with us, we have the authors or the narrators of Nimi and Malik, and that is so amazing to have two narrators. And also the special aspect of tonight is that it is a heart and soul book chat. I do 4 of these a year. We pair authors with humanitarian causes. And the beautiful thing about this is Alka is an ambassador for Room to Read. And we are lucky enough to have a Room to Read representative with us tonight. So it is just the aligning of so many beautiful stars. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's get to introductions. The voice of Nimi is with us here tonight, and that is Deepa Samuels. Welcome, Deepa. Deepa is coming to us from LA. She is born and raised in the United States, but of Indian background. When I go down my rabbit hole of research, it sounds like we'd all have fun with Deepa. She loves to cook, loves to laugh, gathering with others over food. She is a voice actress and has narrated 9 books, and I think in our correspondence, she said she's doing a couple more currently. So welcome, welcome, Deepa. Thank you. Deepa is the voice of Nimi. So
thank you for the introduction. Hi.
And next up is Ariane, who is the voice of Malik. And wow, Ariane was born in London, but raised in Kenya, then South Africa. And when I was going down your rabbit hole, Ariane, I loved the part of your interviews where you said that because of your heritage, you had to get your degree, which put you in California. But Ariane is a theater actor, a film actor, a movie actor, a voice actor. And I don't know if you want, this was also on your background, that you have circus training. I thought that was kind of unique. And some dancing. So welcome, Ariane. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, he's gonna show us how Malik would dance. Yeah, just wait for it.
Yes, you didn't know that's coming up first.
I'm ready.
And Alka, our author, is here. Thank you so much, Alka. You are a busy, busy woman, and we're so glad that you could make time for us this evening. Now, when I was going down the rabbit hole for Alka and looking at her background, the thing that jumped out to me that I absolutely was hands down respect is that Alka at 51, after a marketing career in copywriting, pursued an MFA in writing. And at 53, you came out with the manuscript for the Henna artist?
Yes.
Yes. And here is if there is a definition or a picture of grit and determination, Alka, I think you are the poster child, because in reading it said it took 10 years for you, and I read one was 25 revisions and the other one was 30 revisions. So yeah,
about 30. Yeah,
girlfriend, high five. That is determination. And aren't we lucky that the Sunshine Book Club and Reese Witherspoon picked up this beautiful, beautiful story of not only the human aspect of Lakshmi, but this absolutely wonderful cultural richness with so many aspects to it. So I thought maybe what would be great is to each of you, Ariane, Deepa, and Alka, if you could talk to besides the story, which is wonderful, is there an aspect of the books that excites you more? The food, the jewelry, the costumes, the culture, the people, the places. So maybe Alka, you could start for us.
Sure. I had so much fun writing these books. And as you know, I'm on book number 3 right now. But what's fun for me is to put all of my readers in the setting of what I'm writing about. I want you to experience the smells, the sounds, the sights. I want you to feel as if you are in Jaipur, as if you are in Shimla on the streets and experiencing what the characters are experiencing. And so for me, as I was helping Harper Audio figure out who was going to narrate these voices, what was so interesting to me is how do I get the right timbre of voice? How do I get the right inflection of young Malik, who is very enterprising and also very thoughtful, and then Nimmi, who has this she's a tribal woman in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur. She has this, a past that has led her to settle herself in Shimla as opposed to going on with her nomadic tribe. So she kind of has nerves of steel. And I needed her to be young, but also to be a very determined person. So I was looking for that in that voice. And then, of course, Lakshmi, our heroine, is, loosely based on my mother. And my mother had a very calm voice. And so we have Sneha Mathan, who plays Lakshmi, and we would love to have had her with you today, but she actually prefers to stay in the shadows. She says, no, I'm just an audio narrator. I don't want to be front and center on camera. So, of course, she plays a large part in all 3 books. So for me, it was really exciting to bring the sights and sounds of India and the way people talk to one another and the accents that they bring to the narrative in their own voices. That was really exciting.
Ariane, when you were narrating the book, was there an aspect that you enjoyed, or what were the aspects that you enjoyed and why?
Yeah, I think definitely firstly the food. I think I'm a lover of Indian food, be it in Kenya, South Africa, or London. The food is all amazing. And I think just the way Alka describes the food and the richness of it, just as I was narrating it, I was definitely hungry on my lunch break. So and I was trying to find the nearest Indian restaurant. But I think that aspect and definitely just immersing myself, like I didn't grow up in India. I've been to India. I've been to Mumbai basically for 2 weeks just before I was going to do this Mount Everest base camp thing. And just there, it was such, the way Alka writes completely transported me back into that space that I was. And even the passage that I'm going to read later, him being at Moti Lal's store, I think it just completely pictured everything. It's like I've been in that situation in South Africa, waiting for my mom to get her jewelry and just sitting there and observing all the other families. So I think it was definitely that aspect of the such descriptive writing that completely transported me back there, where I was like, I'm back in India. Yeah.
And Deepa, when you were reading for Nimmi and the stories of The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, was there an aspect of the book that you enjoyed, or which ones and why?
Well, the character is very interesting because I have an aunt named Nimmi, so it was very easy to think of my aunt and think of that character. And what I really loved is very similar to Aryan. What he was saying is it's a very descriptive culture, so you can feel like you're right there. And I've been to India a number of times as well. And the last time I was there was for my grandmother's funeral right before COVID, but my grandmother is probably what I thought of when I thought of Nimmi, because here was my grandmother who got married very young. The joke with my grandmother was, before her report card was dry with the headmaster's marks, they married her off to my grandfather. But she was young, she was determined, she had all sorts of medicinal cure-alls for everything. And so I was able to think of my grandmother in a lot of these instances, and it really made it personal for me. Her looking at like the flowers and the herbs and things like that made me go through a lot of my memories of my family, my aunt and my grandmother. So very descriptive and evokes a lot of emotion.
And,
Go ahead.
Julie, if I can just add, as you'll notice, everybody, all of us have different, accents. All of us have different backgrounds. I lived in India till I was 9 and then have lived in the United States since then, been back to India multiple times. Ariyan has never actually lived in India, but he has grown up mainly in Africa and then, in London. And Deepa was born and raised here in this country. And so when people ask me, how is it that you haven't lived in India all of these years, but you can describe it so viscerally, the reason is that, as all three of us demonstrate, once you have South Asian DNA in your bones, you're never going to leave it. It's never going to leave you. You grow up with the food, you grow up with the kind of traditions, you grow up with the smells of curry and, hair oil, coconut hair oil, and you grow up with all of those that will never, ever go away. And so it becomes much easier to pretend as if you are still back there. Does that make sense, Julie? Does that resonate with what other people have also probably commented on?
Well, when we pick a group selection in the Walking Book Club, I do what I call book extras to add context, to give a visual. And you're both the secret keeper and the henna artist, not only on the PDFs that you provide, but there was so much content that was shared, from the food, as Ariane said, to the botanicals, as Deepa said, to the streets. And it really was the historical fiction aspect, but to be able to go and see what the style of jewelry that you described looked like. It's probably one of the richest books that we've done in terms of book extra content. So I want to on that, and Deepa, you're going to read for us next, so if you can just get ready. If you haven't checked out our book extras, we have a PDF of the complete listing, and they're also in our Facebook discussion group. So if you ever want to go back and kind of peruse there, you can see pictures of the jewelry, the food, the places. And that was something that really, when you went down the rabbit hole of Shimla, the flower markets and the temples, it was beautiful, and I'll open my eyes to a whole different aspect. So thank you for that. So that was to give Deepa a little bit of a breath. She's going to read for us, which is a really special opportunity to hear the narrator actually read live the character. So whenever you're ready, Deepa.
All right. I hold the book to my nose and inhale, trying to call up the sense of all the hands that have flipped the pages. But all I smell is something like the atta I make chapatis with. Turn the pages carefully. Our tribal leaders may not know how to read, but they revere those who can. Books contain magic, they say. If we so much as stepped on a book or on a piece of paper, we were punished. I trace the letters with my finger and mouth out the words in the book, just as Lakshmi taught us to do. She spends an hour reading with Rekha and me every afternoon. Sometimes Lakshmi shows us how to write the names of the foods we're eating. I now know that the word chapati starts with a cha. Wait until I show Malik that I can write my name now. So can Rekha. Dave would be so proud of her. She learns so quickly. She thinks nothing of it. At 4 years old, she's learning what I'm only learning at the age of 22 or 23. I think that one of those is right. I've always been able to do simple math in my head, but now I take great pride in writing out the names of numbers from 1 to 10. Ak, do, teen, char. And now that I'm learning to read, I can recognize the numbers by their names.
Yay! That was
Yay.
wonderful. Deepa, when we were corresponding a little bit and I asked you to read, you referenced that you had to go back and I think, re-examine how you got into character. Can you share your creative process?
It comes back down to like what Alka was saying earlier, young and determined, and she thinks she knows so much. And in her group of people, she does. Then she gets involved with somebody who's outside of her group of people. So I really thought of, what would that be like? You know a lot, but then you're introduced to people who also know a lot. How do you compare yourself? Do you go with the strengths that you have? And I'll go back to my grandma, who was an inspiration for me. And though she's no more, my aunt is still around, and she's just like my grandmother. So a lot of heritage comes out when I think of that character, because I do think of family members who are bold in a country where women aren't always allowed to be as bold, or at least during their time they weren't. And now you have characters that are written like this, that are strong, that kind of remind you why you want to be involved in reading something like that or understanding a culture like that. So I would say that's where I drew my inspiration from, and personal experience, family experience.
And I think you read it with the right amount of humility and sort of insecurity, because as you said, Nimmi knows her world of the nomadic tribe really well, but now she's in this whole other environment where she's learning to read for the first time. She's been illiterate all of these years. And I think that the way you read it, there was a sense of wonder and insecurity in her voice, which of course would be there after thinking you know everything, and then all of a sudden realizing, oh, maybe I don't. I love that.
Thank you.
So before we have Ariane read, I was hoping, Alka, in looking at your posts and following you now, every once in a while, you include a picture of your mother, this stunning black and white picture of your mother. And I know that part of the inspiration for the book comes from your mother. Could you speak to that for our members and our guests?
Of course, yes. And everybody, I just want you to know my dad is also one of our participants here. Dr. Joshi is here. Dad, you want to wave? So, okay, so what happened is that Mom and I were making many visits to India at a certain time because my younger brother had bought a condo in Jaipur where a lot of our extended family still lives. And so I was taking my mother back and forth. And as we were doing that, I was learning a lot about my mother's young life as a girl, as a young student, as a young wife, as a young mother, things I had never actually explored with her because I hadn't lived at home since I was 18 years old and went away to college. And so, I was learning so many things about the fact that she didn't have a lot of choices in her life. Neither really did my father. They were arranged in a marriage. Dad was 22 or 23, Mom was 18. And Mom's father said, hey, listen, I've got to get you married now because if we wait any longer, you will be too old. And I've got 5 other sisters of yours that would have to also get married. So we need you to do this now. And so Mom and Dad get married. And I think the first time they ever really spoke to one another was on the night of their wedding. And then, Mom has 3 kids in rapid succession, and we are constantly moving because Dad was one of those young engineers post-independence that I talk about in all of my books. India, after independence, had to learn how to reinvent itself. Which industries did it want to grow? Which parts of the schooling did they want to emphasize? And so, IT centers cropped up, and there's a lot of building of dams and bridges and roads that's going on that my father was in charge of. So, Dad was constantly being moved from one project to another. So we were constantly moving. Once again, my mother didn't really have a say-so in that. She's just constantly moving us. And then Dad decides I'm going to get a doctorate in civil engineering, and we're moving halfway across the world. And then Mom's, suddenly acclimating us to a whole new portion of the globe. So I thought, if my mother did not have the kind of decision-making power that she has always granted me, how did that happen? what kind of a woman did she have to be to make that happen? A very generous one, I decided. And so I thought I'd love to thank her for all of those years of the freedom that she has given me to be completely my own person and make all my own decisions. And the way that I could do that is to invent a fictional character in Lakshmi, the henna artist, who gets to forge a life of her very own. So that's sort of how Lakshmi got started. That's sort of how the whole trilogy got started. I had no idea, of course, Julie, at the time that I was going to be writing a trilogy. But then as the story progressed over the 10 years and I got to know these characters well, Malik kept talking to me and saying, you've got to write my story. Now you got to write my story. You already know my story, because those pages never made it into the final version of the henna artist. So that's where I started from. And that's why The Secret Keeper of Jaipur is largely about Malik's growth and development as a mature young man.
Thank you. Thank you. And don't worry, everybody. I do have the questions slated about the third book. So I'm not forgetting that. We're gonna get to that a little bit later. So Ariane, if you could read for us, we'd be thrilled.
I'd love to. On my day off, I make a trip to the area of the Pink City Bazaar where all the jewelry shops are. Is it because I need to assuage my guilt about lusting after Sheila, or because I've been wanting to see my old friend Moti Lal? Lalji is the city's premier jeweler. When I arrive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Moti Lal Jewelers is pulsing with activity. A porter in white uniform brings me a cup of chai while I wait for the big man. The plump proprietor is beginning at the middle-aged couple sitting across from him as his assistant sets a stack of squat black velvet boxes on his gleaming mahogany desk. Today, Moti Lal says, I am almost as excited as I would be if I were the one getting married. His teeth are very white, very straight, and very large. I've put aside something very special for Akshay's big day, he says. The prospect of the jewels about to be displayed draws the wife forward in her seat, her silk sari rustling. Sipping my chai, I observe Lalji from the railing that separates the more elaborate bridal room from the rest of the store, where minor purchases, birthday bangles or baby's first earrings, are made. No matter how small or large, the occasion will always be celebrated with a little gold, the universal panacea for what ails us Indians. In the bridal area, the whisper soft carpet allows the delicate tinkling of jhumka earrings and customers' exclamations of joy to take center stage. The lighting at Moti Lal Jewelers is brighter than that of a typical shop. The chairs more luxurious, their padded arms inviting shoppers to linger as they ponder the decision of a lifetime. Mothers, grandmothers, aunties, fathers, brides-to-be, sisters, and impending grooms sit in front of glass cases in which necklaces, earrings, bangles, anklets, rings, glitter, and beckon. Customers carrying purses bulging with cash from the bride's parents are buying gold that will protect the family in case of widowhood, sickness, or financial calamity. The gold is what ensures her future. When I was a boy, little more than 5 or 6 years old, I came to the store once a week, and sometimes more, to deliver Auntie Boss's scented clove and geranium body oils and her custom Bauchi hair oil. Moti Lal's wife was one of our first customers in Jaipur. She loved the products, and when she raved about them to her husband, he made a practice of presenting a brass container filled with Lakshmi's potions to every bridal client. It was this kind of personal touch that drew Moti Lal's customers back to him time and time again. It was also a good source of income for Auntie Boss.
Thank you. Thank you. So just as I asked Deepa, your creative process to get ready for a role and your headspace when you're narrating.
Yeah, so I think with Malik, it was a special case because similar to him, I also went to a boarding school in South Africa. And it was funny because moving from Kenya to South Africa, I had a Kenyan accent. And when I got to South Africa, it was almost as if I assimilated into the South African accent. So with Malik's character, I thought he grew up in India and then went to school in England, or rather with that English institution, so that he would have this kind of a little bit of a more British accent, and that would aid him in his kind of his internship that he does there, so that he seems more mature in his mind. So it was almost like I made a choice that Malik wanted to use his education and to be able to change his voice for the better, to be able to talk to people. And it's the same reason he has the ability to talk to these fascinating characters and really incredible individuals, and they give him the time of day. So yeah, I made that choice to kind of dive into that side of it.
Alka, how is it for you to hear how Deepa and Ariyan got into their characters? I think it's fascinating.
I do. I just think it's fascinating. I think that they're doing the hard work of actors. Actors have to really personalize what it is they're portraying. So whether it's an emotion of confidence or insecurity or curiosity or wonder, they have to be able to internalize that feeling and then be able to project it in a voice. I think it's very hard work that they do. I have no idea how to do it myself. I just think, I write words. I paint pictures with words, but I could never do exactly what Ariane and Deepa are doing. And of course, what Sneha does as they read the three characters of the Secret Keeper of Jaipur. And, one thing I wanted to know was when you guys read these, because you guys as an author, I'm not present when they're doing their work. I'm completely out of that loop. But as you guys were together, were you guys all together in the same studio, or were you on a Zoom call? And how was it done?
I wish we were, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say it would have been very interesting to see how we played off each other. No, I recorded solo. I think we all
Wow.
different times, different locations, whatever was convenient for us. And I mean, you've got to read that story, not just read your own parts. So you kind of, at least for myself, I kind of figured out what Malik would say or what Lakshmi would say and maybe what the tonality would be like. And then try to respond in that same way of, I'm young, I know what I'm talking about. Okay, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I will act like I know. So kind of get there a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Well, Julie, this is news to me. I didn't realize that they're all reading their parts separate from one another and not even reacting to, the chapter right before where somebody else was speaking. I'm sorry, Ariane, I cut you off.
Oh no, yeah, I was just gonna agree with Deepa and say it would have been lovely to have that. But I think we did initially send a short recording of each other's voice, just doing a small passage, so that we could base their voice, like what they sound like, and then when we build the voices for them, it kind of similarly matches. But there was this, what it did give us, and the other side of it was this sense of complete empathy for that character, and really taking on that character, so you have your own sense of journey where it's like, yeah, you're not just reading your own chapters, you have to actually read the other chapters and see what the other characters say to really get into their story. And I think it aids your own in that way. So at the end of the book, it feels as though, at least for me, when I was coming up with everyone's distinct voices, it's like you've understood the whole story as a whole from everyone's perspective. And then it's like, yeah, you just have all these people inside you when you leave the book, and it doesn't feel as though you're just leaving with one character. It felt like an amalgamation of all of their hearts and souls into yours, which I loved.
This is probably our 8th or 9th, maybe 10th call where we've been able to host both the author and the narrator. And I am continually fascinated by the creative process of the narrators. We also in the Walking Book Club appreciate the skill and talents of the narrators too. So I really believe that a narrator brings this dimension to the story and lifts it up off the page. And a great narrator adds an element that makes an audiobook special and unique. So congratulations to both of you. So anyway, okay, so this is the point. We have a couple of people that did send in some questions prior to the call. Diane, Nicole, and Ramesh, you are in queue to ask some questions directly. Diane, if you want to bring yourself off mute, please do so. And I have a question that wait till the end that we're going to do, because I think it might be a little bit fun, but towards the end of the call, give some thought to your favorite aspects of either or the henna artist and the secret keeper of Jaipur. And we'll do what's called a waterfall, where type it in and then we'll all press enter at the same time and see what everybody's favorite part of the book was. So that's kind of a little bit of a fun way to close this out. And also we gave Diane a little bit of time while I was explaining that to come off mute. So Diane, you had a question that you sent in, and I would love it if you would ask directly.
Okay, so do you feel that attitudes towards women and lower castes are changing in India? Do you see changes from when you lived there as a child to today?
Yes, and I think that the most, thank you for your question, Diane. I think that the most changes you will see are in the middle class. That class has grown substantially in the last 20 to 30 years. And in that middle class, you will find more parents that are able to send both their son and their daughter to college. So as these women are getting higher degrees, they have more of a voice now to be able to say, look, I don't want to get married until I have my BA, or I don't want to get married until I have 2 years under my belt, or I don't want to have a child, 2 years of work under my belt, or I don't want to have a child until I get my master's or something. So they were able to negotiate a little bit more about their arranged marriage. Also, one of the other changes I've seen is that arranged marriages in India at the time of my parents' marriage might have been more like 90 to 95%. Now it's only about 70 to 80%, which means that the rest of them are either not getting married or having a love marriage, which is what it's called when you decide your own partner. So I think in some of those ways, I'm seeing some changes. As women are going to college and getting higher degrees, they're able to interact with a whole lot of people from other castes, from other classes, from all kinds of other, walks of life. And so they're falling in love. They're realizing that none of these people are any different just because they're not from the same community that they were from. So I think those are some changes that I see. I was recently with a let me just complete that thought about the socioeconomic classes. But if you're in the lower socioeconomic classes, if you're living in a village or a remote area and you don't have access to a lot of education as a young woman, then most likely you are going to be arranging a marriage by your parents. You will have several children by the time you are 20 years old. And I doubt if you're going to have like a major career in your life or go back to school. The wealthy class, of course, has always sort of done their own thing. So we'll just leave them where they are. But the most movement has been in the middle class. But recently, I was in a book club of professional women in Mumbai. They were all doctors, lawyers, and engineers. And the lawyers told me something so fascinating, I was completely flummoxed. And that is that as many of these women have gone to college, gotten their masters, got their PhDs, they're making more money than the grooms, their intended grooms. And so they are saying, you know what, I'd like a prenup agreement, please. And that is a huge change for India. That is unfathomable. That is amazing. The other thing that they told me is that because these women are earning so well, their families are refusing to give dowries to the groom's family. And that has been a tradition for, thousands of years. Essentially, what that was for was that the groom's family would then be taking care of this new bride for the rest of her life. So, they were sort of being paid to do that. But now, if the woman is financially whole and she can take care of herself financially, regardless of whether that marriage lasts or not, then, there's no reason to pay that dowry. And I would me personally, would love to see the dowry system go away, because I really feel that it puts prices on people's heads about what their worth is in life. And I think it would be far better if we didn't have that kind of chattel environment. The last thing I'll tell you is that because women are more self-sufficient now financially and able to pave their own way through life, divorces are on the rise, as they were in America in the 1950s and 60s when women went out to work. Same thing is happening in India as well.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Diane. Nicole, if you could bring yourself off mute, you had a question.
Hello. I was touched by the fact that Reka, I don't know if I'm saying the name right. Reka was learning to read, and then her mother was also learning how to read at the same time. And I thought that was just incredible. And so I wondered if, because of room to read, obviously literacy is important, especially for young women and girls in rural communities like the tribal communities. Was that intentional in putting that in the book to bring attention to the importance of literacy and the importance of literacy for all of the people in India, especially girls?
Yeah, I think that it was very important for me. I think, because my father is an academic, education has always been very, very, very important to him. And so I think the three of us always grew up with the idea that I don't think there was ever a question in our minds that we wouldn't go to college, that we wouldn't experience life, that we wouldn't move to other countries and, have work that was going to sustain us in some way. So I think it's very important for me as I write to imbue my characters with the kinds of things that I would love to see more of in this world, whether it is Hindus and Muslims getting along better with one another, whether it is, literacy being spread from child to mother, or whether it's something about, mother-in-laws being kind to their daughter-in-laws. So I really love this whole idea as an author that I get to talk about things in my narrative that I firmly believe in, but I can weave it into the narrative so that it doesn't feel like I am pushing my agenda on people. I'm just letting them know, here is another perspective. Here is yet another perspective. And it's very important for me, I think, for women to elevate themselves in this world. You must have an education. You must be able to read and write and be able to communicate your thoughts in more ways than just verbal. Thanks, Nicole, for your question.
Thank you, Nicole. Ramesh, you had sent in a question prior to the call. If you'd like to bring yourself off mute and ask. And
I would prefer you read my question, because the way I have an accent, not a very bad accent, but I do have an accent, and I may not be able to express it as well as you probably would ask.
All right. Well, you'll have to give me a second on that. And Krishna, you had wrote in, did you ever think there would be such a deep analysis, such a detailed examination on something that you might have casually written in this story?
I'm not sure that I actually thought that far into it. What I really wanted to do was to tell a story that I wanted to read, a story that I had never read before. And that was the story of post-independence India. There's so much emphasis that is always placed on partition. Partition impacted 14, 16 million people. But there were 300 million Indians still in India who were feeling all of this pride and exuberance and excitement about having their country back to themselves. So I think it was so important for me to reclaim my heritage in this amazing country of India, and to be able to tell the world, look at all these amazing things that the citizenry had to go through in order to rebuild themselves. Look at all of the amazing things that they were already aware of, already so much wealth that existed in that country that they have given to the rest of the world. I think that India needs to be acknowledged and appreciated for so much of what they have lent to this world. So that's the kind of book I wanted to write. Things about herbal medications, herbal remedies that have been practiced for millennia in families that the West may not know about, but that have a place in society as much as Western remedies do. And the adaptability of Indians to be able to incorporate the East and the West into their lifestyles, into their health, in a way that I think other people find it hard to assimilate. And I think the other thing I wanted to, of course, convey is that India is the place where so many beautiful arts and crafts come from. It's the place where all of those beautiful textiles come from. And it's the place where all of the spices were that the Eastern traders and explorers were dying for and, went across India to try to secure for themselves. Remember when Columbus found America, he was really looking for India. Don't ever forget that. He was looking for the silks and the spices. So that was the story I wanted to write, because that was the story I wanted to read. And I had never read that kind of story before. So I don't think I was thinking so much beyond how were other people going to react to it, but just I wanted to write this story. And the last thing I wanted to write about, because of my mother's upbringing, was the agency that women have or don't have in their lives. And I want absolutely for women to be able to determine their own futures, because I think it makes women stronger, more able to contribute to their society. And also I think it gives them license to be joyous and feel that they do have a remarkable contribution to make to their communities. Does that help? Does that help, Krishnamurthy?
Yes, Alka, thank you so much. And, apart from just the fictional portion of the book, I was just enamored by how much historical facts you have mentioned in the book. And I, being a baby of the 1950s, even I was not aware of this culture, and I've learned a lot. Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. So, I do have to give my father a lot of credit for a lot of the historical references that are in the book. Not only did I do research, but I could talk to my dad about it, because dad was born in 1932, 1933, something like that. And so he was alive before independence. He used to, as a young boy, go off and join those marches to quit India, Gandhi marches and things like that. He would skip school maybe to go do something like that. And so, he was very much a part of the fabric of this new India. And then, of course, once he became an engineer and started to work with, all of the new projects that were going on, he was sometimes in the company of those Maharajas who were building all these new components. And so in The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, what's interesting is that there is a building that collapses in this, and Malik has to try to figure out what really happened. So as the building collapsed, I had to call Dad, and I go, Dad, what would make a building collapse in 1969? Dad, who would pay for that? How would that be treated in the public eye? And so he was able to answer all those questions for me, because he has lived it. He has been there. He has done all of that. So, I really do have to give Dad a lot of credit for giving me the background that I needed for these books. And then, of course, Mom gave me a lot of information about cooking and about, what she was eating and the fruits and things like that they were, ingesting at the time.
I should say that she always was very inquisitive, even while writing this. And in those 10 years, the first one she wrote, I always tried to read it and help her out that way.
Yeah, and Dad read most of my drafts.
And the second draft, she stayed with me for more than a month or so here in Laguna Woods. Yes. And she was all the way asking, how about this? How about that? In 50s, because that's where she was born in 1958. Is that right, Betty?
Yep.
I always used to forget the date birth. My wife used to say, you can't remember any dates. As mothers generally do remember, their fathers forget.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
I think, no, Dad, I think that, that is absolutely the case. You are my secret weapon. And no, nobody here can borrow my dad. No, my dad is only my secret weapon, not yours.
Well, I didn't want to make any assumptions. I did see the same last name, but I didn't make any assumptions. So I think our call just got even more special to see the two of you interact and have your reference here for us to meet. So thank you both. And with that, I'm going to ask your dad's question, and maybe with the question, you can also speak to the third book a little bit. So your father wrote in, and this is not an easy one. Would the third volume in the series show how geopolitics has affected the social and economic conditions and the electorate and advancing the country? Your dad wrote that.
Thanks a lot, Dad. Okay, so I think I can answer that question this way. The third book takes place in 1974. We are in Paris. Radha is now 30-something years old, and she works as a lab assistant to a master perfumer. She was so good at mixing henna paste. She was so good at mixing the paints for the old man in the village that she got very interested in the ingredients that go into mixing fragrances. So she got an apprenticeship, and then she works for a larger fragrance house. Now she's on the cusp of designing a signature scent. Well, guess what? So many of the base notes that go into perfumes all have a top note, a middle note, and a base note. And many of those base notes are harvested and manufactured in India. And so I want the world to know that. I want the world to realize that, whether they have a scent in their detergent or their perfume or their lotion, chances are there are fragrances, there are ingredients in there that are mined in India. So she's going to drop down to India. She's going to meet up with Lakshmi, and they're going to go searching for a particular fragrance that can only be found in India that she wants to incorporate into her scent. And at the same time, what's happening is that there is a knock on her door in her on her Paris apartment, and it is the baby whom she left behind at the age of 4 months in Shimla. And that is going to be a comeuppance for her. It is a huge shock in her life that this baby has shown up. Her husband in Paris, the Parisian, he has no idea that she had had a baby before she met him. So this is going to be a shock to their marriage as well. And I want to incorporate a lot of what happens when a woman is confronted with something that she did in the past, which is supposed to be shameful. But I want to explore whether it really is shameful for Radha to have had this baby. Is this really something that was under her control or not? And I want to explore what happens in a marriage. In a marriage that's half Indian and half European, what happens in that marriage when there is a breach of trust, when there is a betrayal of sorts, and does the marriage survive? So I want to explore that. And so I think that the geopolitical kind of things that I'm exploring are probably a lot more subtle than your question would indicate. And I'm always trying to be subtle with the kinds of messages that I'm getting across in my books. The overarching note always is that the characters drive the plot. And my characters are full-bodied at this point. They have lives that I don't even have any control over. They're essentially usually telling me what they want to do, what they want to say in a certain scene. And that is a huge reward as an author. But yes, I will try to describe what's happening in India in 1974, as well as what's happening in Europe in 1974. What are the fashions of that period? What is the political climate? How are the French perceiving the Indians? And how is the entire world perceiving fragrances that come from India? So, you know, I'm just involved in all of that research. I love doing research for my books, you guys. I get so down the rabbit holes of some of this research that I completely lose sight of my plot. And then I have to yank myself back and go, okay, that's fascinating. Okay, that's how sandalwood is harvested. But now I need to go back and work on the plot. So, it's a delight. It's just a delight to be able to talk about 1955 India, and then 1969 India, and then in the new book 1974 India and Paris. And one of the things I'm trying to do in book number 3 is, and Deepa and Ariane are perfect examples of this as well, is that the Indian diaspora is so wide and so global. You will find Indians in every corner of the world. And wherever they go, I think that they contribute very positively to that society. They become our doctors, they become our lawyers and engineers, they become our media personalities, they become our journalists, they become our surgeon generals, as is the case right now in the United States. So I just, you know, I also want the world to be able to appreciate and acknowledge that part of what Indians contribute to the world.
I must point out that not all the information she got from me, she does so much of research, I was surprised. She reads about 4 or 5 books, say, every second week or something like that, or more. And she always asks me in different areas, what areas of the other countries, because I have traveled a lot. She used to talk about. So she really does rote research by reading also, not only just talking to me.
Thanks.
And she has visited India about, I think, 5 times or 4 times during the 80s or 90s with your mother.
Well, during 2000, from 2008 to 2011, I went 5 times. And that was when I was really writing the majority of the Henna artists. And then I went again in 2019, right before the pandemic struck. And
you stayed there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, I must point out too, there is the other lady who asked the question or commented. I haven't told you, she's my cousin Betty, who was born in 50s.
Oh, Krishnamurthy, hi, how are you?
Hi, Alka, Betty.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Julie. It's like old home week.
It's fabulous. How special to be able to not only have your dad and your dad's cousin and the narrators. I did want to pause for a minute because this is I think such a unique part of tonight's discussion is your association and your support of Room to Read. So we have a representative from Room to Read here, and Nicole, if you could take a minute and educate us on the mission, and then Alka, if you could also kind of speak to your passion with it.
Absolutely. My name is Nicole Smith. I am the chapter leader for the New Jersey chapter of Room to Read. So I am a volunteer, and my main focus is fundraising and fundraising for Room to Read programs. Room to Read programs are primarily in Asia and Africa. They involve publishing books in the local languages of the kids and the countries and the cultures. It involves teaching children how to read and to develop a love of reading from an early age. And the other big part of the Room to Read work is ensuring girls stay in secondary school. And they do that through mentoring and social mobilizers and giving them life skills and goal setting and helping them to develop confidence and become leaders in their own lives. And I've been doing it for over a decade and I love it. And I will say that I've never been to India, but I was born in Iowa. And so I remember, Alka, you saying you all moved to Iowa when you came to the US. So I was very excited.
Yes, we were in Ames, Iowa.
Yeah, I grew up in Cedar Rapids, a little bit east of there, but I was, so the connections continue. And so I'm just thrilled that the Iowa girl can talk to the Indian author and her whole family. So I'm very excited.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And, you know, it's very important for me to support Room to Read because, as I said before, I do think that literacy is the way out of poverty. It's the way to elevate women's lives, to elevate anyone's lives. But yes, Room to Read for me became this really big thing where I could get involved on a daily basis. I don't charge people to do my book club discussions. So, you know, I've done over 550 book club discussions and I don't charge for those, but libraries will often pay me an an honorarium, and I love to turn that honorarium over to Room to Read because, you know, it's such a small part of my life, but it's a big part of the budget for Room to Read. And they can do so much with a $50 donation or a $10 donation even. And I just think it's amazing to be able to give back in a way that I'm able to give to the community, right? So I read and I write and I can offer books up now to people, but Room to Read can offer the literacy and the ability to read those books.
Well, and I want to add on to that is the Heart and Soul book chats that we do, the Walking Book Club, everything goes back to the charity. You can make it directly, take your tax donation. The impetus was in the beginning of the pandemic, and we had Janine Cummins on, and we gave back to the International Rescue Committee. And from there, it kind of grew into something that I like to say that the Walking Book Club is not only good for the mind and the body, our Heart and Soul book chats are good for the heart and the soul. And it's a way of connecting people. And what I say is, if you can make a $5, if you're able to, and you were going to go to a book club, you might bring a bottle of wine or a dessert or an hors d'oeuvre. Instead of that, if you can make a small donation, together we can achieve more. So that just brings everything together, good for the mind, body, heart, and soul. And now this hour went so quickly. If you could, Ariane, Deepa, and Alka, share one thing, since we are a book club with a healthy body, happy mind ethos. What is one healthy body, happy mind thing that is important to you? Alka, why don't you go first?
All right. So one of the ways that I write, you guys, is I walk, or I ride my bike, or I swim. And as I do those things, I am constantly processing a new scene. I am moving the characters around in a scene. I am imagining their dialogue. So I write in my head as I exercise. And I love that kind of movement because it helps move my scenes forward too.
Arian.
I love to meditate, and I use meditation with a lot of my characters as well. So I'll try and get into a character and then meditate. But regardless of getting into character, I just meditate at least for 30 minutes every morning, and that centers me.
And Deepa, what about you?
A voice coach told me a long time ago, start being like a child, and then you get out of your head. So when you're thinking of all these things as an adult and you put pressure in your head of what you have to do, then sometimes what you want to do can't be as happy. So I would say, to balance your mind, get out of your head, enjoy yourself.
All right.
I love that. Oh my God, I'm going to try that, Deepa. I think that sounds like a great idea.
I hope it works for you. It works for me.
So everybody, we're getting to the end, and I always find the end of these calls so awkward of everybody dropping off, but I thought we could do a couple of fun things to culminate the call. I'm going to put my screen on gallery view. So if you want to, and please, I hope you will, because it'll be better with faces than just names. If you want to bring yourself onto camera, I'd love to get a group picture. And while you're doing that, if you want to type in right now your favorite aspect of either this call or the books, let's see what everybody has to say. So go ahead and type in right now as everybody's adjusting their cameras. And I hope a few more of you will bring your beautiful faces on so we can get a group picture. So everybody go ahead and type in what is your favorite part of the book or the call. Let's see what we're seeing. Meeting Malik and Nimi in person, the henna artist, the characters come to life. Love the henna designs, love the natural healing. Let's see what else. Keep them coming, keep them coming. I love the richness of the character lives and how they grow over time. Oh yeah, and I can't wait for book 3. Lakshmi presses on despite adversity, all the food. Oh, all the food, yum. Meeting the author and the narrators, the intelligence, determination, her storytelling, hearing her voice is wonderful. Oh, if the 3 of you don't feel love right now, I hope you feel it. And with that, I'm going to take a picture before we go. I want to say thank you to all our members that showed up. I want to say thank you to all our guests who showed up. I hope that you will stay with us, follow us for either the Healthy Body, Happy Mind, the narration, the book content. Stay with us. We're a friendly community. You can follow us on Instagram at the Walking Book Club or join our discussion group. Just touch base with us and be a part of our community. And thank you, Alka. Thank you, Nicole, for Room to Read. Deepa, Ariane, thank you. And I'm going to take a group picture so everybody put their big smiles on, and then we'll say goodbye. And with gratitude, here comes the picture. Here we go.
Thanks, everybody. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Julie. Thanks, the Walking Book Club. Thank you, Ariane. Thank you, Deepa. Thank you,
You're all
Nicole.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, narrators. Narrators did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
They are budding actors.
Thanks, Dad.
They already are. Thank you, Bridget.
All right. So I just want to, as we're closing off, want to say thank you again to everybody. I am going to end the call, but again, thank you. I hope you'll come back for another. I hope Alka will definitely come back for her third book. So, yeah.
Thank you, Julie. You did an incredible job. It was wonderful and nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.